Hello students, it's your history teacher and I'm here with another online lecture. And it's the last for your first year of the school. So let's get to it. I will start with Romans and Egypt because it's the point where I stopped. I was talking about Caesar on our last lecture. So when he became the dictator for life, when he came to Egypt to catch the Pompey, his enemy, but Pompey was already dead because Ptolemy, the Egyptian king or pharaoh, already killed him. So after this incident, Caesar and Ptolemy's daughter, famous Cleopatra, started to have very close relationship. In fact, Caesar helped Cleopatra to seize the power because she was woman and so her brother should be the next pharaoh. But Caesar helped her to become the queen of Egypt. There's also a possibility that Caesar and Cleopatra had son. It's probably true, and his name was Caesarion, so after Caesar. But he had to go back to Rome, and his return was really triumphal. So by many, he was adored and beloved, but he was also hated by some of the groups of people. And that's how the Caesar's haters managed to assassinate him, because they believed they're doing the right thing for the Rome. So they organized this assassination in the Senate, and it was done by a group of conspirators in 44 BC. Tí conspirators neznamená konšpirátori, ale tzv. Sprísahanci. Áno, čiže sprísahanie je conspiracy po anglicky a nie konšpirácia, čiže nejaké tie teórie. Tie sú nazvané práve podľa toho, že sú to teórie rôznych sprísahaní, ktoré sú vo svete. Dobre? Čiže aby ste rozlišovali. Čiže neznamená to, že sú to tí ľudia, ktorí šíria hoaxy, aj keď to je tiež dosť veľké zlo. So in the year 44 BC, Caesar is dead. And so other men of the ancient Rome wanted to seize the power for themselves and they wanted to take over the Caesar's influence. Treba ako železo, pokým je horúce, čiže vlastne hneď po tej smrti Cezara sa chceli k moci dostať ďalší ľudia. And so the second triumvirate was organized. So the first triumvirate was Marcus Crassus, Julius Caesar, and Pompey. And the second triumvirate was Mark Antony, Octavian, and Lepidus. So these three wanted to restore peace in the Republic, but of course they were doing it for their own selfish reasons. So the first of these three men, Mark Antony, fell in love with Cleopatra while he was in Egypt. So he spent most of his time in Egypt with Cleopatra. And so Octavian was spreading his power over the Rome. You know, Lepidus was not important at all. It was basically the same thing as Marcus Crassus, okay? So in each of these triumvirates, there were two men who became the enemies, okay? It's the same pattern all over and over. So the same thing happened, you know, remember when Caesar left to Gallia because he became a governor, and Pompey's influence over the Senate in Rome was growing? Well, the same thing was happening now, but Mark Antony was in Egypt and not in Gallia, but otherwise, really, same thing. So again, it resulted in the civil war between these two. And the very important battle of this civil war was the naval battle of Actium in 31 BC. So this was battle at the sea. And in this battle, Octavian defeated the army of Mark Antony and Cleopatra because they had one army, and he sieged them. So they lost this battle. But I suppose you've heard of this story. They didn't want to give up, so they committed suicide together. It is said that Mark Antony stabbed himself with his own sword, and Cleopatra was bitten by a cobra, so by a snake. So when Octavian entered the Alexandria city, he found Cleopatra and Mark Antony dead. So he won the civil war with this he also got power over Egypt. Okay, so it was quite success for him. So when he returned to Rome, he returned as a winner. So it was very triumphal again, very similar to Caesar's return, but without the hate. So Octavian accepted many titles. The first title he accepted was Augustus. This means exalted one or the chosen one. Apart from Augustus, he also kept the title of Imperator. This means supreme military commander, so something bigger than consul, so like the main general. The third title was Princeps Civitatis. This means the first citizen of all Roman citizens, so he is the most important of all Romans. The next title was Pontifex Maximus. This means like the highest priest. And besides these titles, he also got many offices like consul and tribune for life. So, let's make a conclusion. He was the best, he was the chosen, he was supreme military commander, he was the highest consul, highest priest, the highest tribune for life. So this means that he was the highest for everything. So it all gave him a supreme power over all fields of the public life. So now we can finally say that after Octavian got to the power, Rome was not a republic anymore, because during his reign, the Roman Republic was transformed into an empire. Here I have a picture. Well, it's a meme, and it can help you to remember that Mark Antony and Octavian used to be friends and allies and buddies, but when Mark Antony visited Cleopatra in Egypt, he fell in love and, well, she was also a smart woman, so she could also use him. So Mark Antony would defend Egypt for her. So it's depicting how Mark Antony left Octavian for Cleopatra. The empire, so the last period of ancient Rome, was established by Octavian, who, as I mentioned, accepted title Augustus, the chosen one, so he was also called Augustus. Octavian Augustus, Augustus Octavian, which of the name you will use, it's okay. Okay, so I will accept both of them as correct in the test. So he established an empire and he established the first dynasty of the empire as well. So it was Julio-Claudian dynasty. You know, the kind of important thing is that Octavian was adopted by Julius Caesar. So that's also why he called this dynasty Julio-Claudian. Okay, so Julia is after Julius Caesar. So we can characterize this dynasty as the era of relative peace and expansion. So this peace, we call it like Pax Romana. So this means that after these civil wars in the first triumvirate and second triumvirate, the empire grew to its largest extent because it did not have to fight in another civil war. Okay, so Pax Romana means Roman peace. Again, this part of the empire we call Principate, but I will not want you to know this in the test. So the emperors who belonged to the Julio-Claudian dynasty were Octavian as the first one, Tiberius, and Claudius. So these three who were really wise. So they were intelligent, they were good emperors, good leaders. But then Caligula was a tyrant and Nero was crazy because he also like set Rome on fire. So they were really three villains. So three emperors who were wise and two who were free villains. The second dynasty of the empire was Flavian dynasty that restored order after the chaos that was caused by Nero's reign. And during this period, for example, the Colosseum was built. So the stadium for gladiatorial games, okay? So before, there was only Circus Maximus built during the kingdom, but they were mostly like horse racing, so not gladiator tournaments so much. For that, Colosseum was built in Rome, okay? The main motto of Colosseum and these gladiatorial games was bread and games. The emperors who belonged to this dynasty were Vespasian and Tito, who were really popular, but Domitian ruled as a tyrant, according to motto Dominus et Deus, what means Lord and God. So the emperor should be Lord and God for his citizens. So that's why this kind of reign is called dominate. But as I mentioned, you do not need to know that. Well, but the Domitian was assassinated by the court officials. Because of that, they didn't want the emperor to be a tyrant. So after the assassination of Domitian, the golden era of the Roman Empire began. The next dynasty I will mention is the era of 5 good emperors. So this was this golden age, the greatest prosperity that the empire had ever experienced. Each emperor chose his successor by adopting him. So as I mentioned, the adoptions were very important for the Rome because families were the basic units of the Roman society. So they did not appoint their own children, but they chose the best man for the job. Je to taký zaujímavý princíp, áno? Rozumiete tomu, že tí cisári mohli mať vlastné deti, ale oni si vybrali niekoho, kto mal podľa nich perspektívu a bol by dobrým ďalším cisárom, preto si ho adoptovali a vyučili si ho na túto prácu a potom ho menovali ďalším cisárom. So these 5 good emperors were Nerva, Trajan, Hadrian, Antonius Pius, and Marcus Aurelius. All of them were capable and very successful emperors. So we can see now the greatest extent of the Roman Empire. So all of this red area were provinces of the ancient Rome. Okay, so from Egypt to Great Britain, from Portugal to Armenia, it all belonged to the Romans. If you can see it in the map, we did not belong to the Roman Empire, but we were their neighbors. If you can see the province Pannonia, this was also modern-day Hungary. And so on the northern border, there was Slovakia. Okay, I will go on to tell you something about it. So as I mentioned, we were just the neighbors of the ancient Rome. And ancient Rome, as a huge organized empire, wanted to defend its borders. So that's why they built Limes Romanus. Limes Romanus was a system of towers, camps, and fortifications built along the borders of the Roman Empire. So somewhere it was the wall, somewhere these were only towers in some kind of like regular distances all along the borders. But they still wanted to try to expand their territory more and more. And that's why they tried to expand in Central Europe, so also to our territory. But this resulted in Marcomannic Wars. These wars are called like that because in our territory were living the Germanic, Marcomanni and Quadi tribes. Čiže germánske kmene germánskeho pôvodu, ktorí sa volajú Markomani a Kvádi. Potom na našom území ešte sídlili Kelti, poprípade nejaké iné etnika. To sme si hovorili v praveku počas doby železnej. So Marcomannic Wars. So wars between the Romans and these Germanic tribes. These wars were happening in the 2nd century after the Christ. And you do not need to know any specific information about it. Just it happened. But there was like no winner, but the Romans were not able to make the province out of our territory. They wanted to make Marcomannia province in this territory, but they were not able to do that because these tribes were very warlike. But still, Marcus Aurelius, who I mentioned as one of the 5 good emperors, please do not mistake him with Mark Antony. Mark Antony was Cleopatra's boyfriend. He died with her, but Marcus Aurelius was one of the 5 good emperors. So, he got to the Slovak territory, into the valleys of the rivers Vach, Nitra, and Hron, where there are remains of Roman military camps. For example, the most famous one is Laugarizio, so they named the city, and it's Trenčín. The second one is Gerulata, This is Bratislava, but only its part called Rusovce. So it's like a suburb. And the last one I want you to know is Kelemancia, and that is Komarno. So in these three places, they built their military camps. So they are already in our territory, behind the border, behind Limes Romanus. And from these military camps, they were organizing expeditions to the territory of the Marcomanni and Quadi tribes. Okay, I really want you to remember these three military camps. One of these rivers, River Huron, is also famous because on the banks of this river, Marcus Aurelius wrote his philosophical book called Meditations. Po slovensky je to Hovorí k sebe samému. Túto knihu si asi budete spomínať možno na slovenčine, možno aj na občianskej, pretože teda je to filozofická kniha, doteraz sa číta a je veľmi populárna. Napísal to teda na území Slovenska Marcus Aurelius. Meditations in English, Hovorí k sebe samému po slovensky. So, I've already mentioned this. He wanted to create a new province, Marcomannia, but he died before he managed to do that. Another things I want to mention, and they are connected to our territory and to Romans, is the Romanization process. It was a process of the Roman cultural influence on these barbaric Germanic tribes. You know, the Romans had these military camps, and we know that there was some interaction between the Germanic barbaric tribes and the Romans. We know it because we found a lot of Roman things and artifacts in the graves of these Germanic tribes. Also, many Roman buildings and trade evidence appeared in the southwestern Slovakia. So these were probably like residences of the Roman, Quadian, and Marcomannic aristocracy. So we can say these who had positive relationship with the Romans and they wanted to be more like them. You know, Romans had very different style of living. They were more cultural, you know, and these Germanic tribes wanted to be like them. You know, it's similar to, for example, some tribes living in Africa. So we have still a lot of communities that are living in the old standard of the living. So they have their own religion, own traditions. So they are, for example, naked with different piercings, tattoos, dances. Okay, they have certain type of cuisine. They do not use anything on electricity and so on. But then there are some tribes in Africa that are totally globalized. So they are living the same life as people somewhere else. So they have smartphones, etc., etc. Predstavte si to presne tak. Čiže mali ste niektoré germánske kmene, ktoré sa nechceli poddať tomu románskému vplyvu a chceli zostať takí, akými boli. A potom boli určité vrstvy, ktoré sa chceli tým Rímanom podobať, pretože Rímania sami si mysleli teda, že sú niečo viac a tá ich kultúra aj teda áno bola rozvinutejšia aspoň o takéto veci, čo sa týka možno hygieny, kanalizácií a tak ďalej. The very specific artifact that was found in graves of barbaric aristocracy in Slovakia was Terra Sigillata. It's a fine red ancient Roman pottery with glossy surface slips. So it's made of very typical soil and it was supposed to be very luxurious pottery. We can also say that the Marcomannic Wars that happened were the prelude, so like as a signal of the invasions that destroyed the empire in the end. This is the famous inscription in Laugaritio, so in Trenčín. So it's on the castle rock, but you can't see it from the street, even though you can see castle, because on that place there is a hotel. It's called Elizabeth, but you can go inside the hotel, ask them that you want to see inscription, and so they will show you how to get there. Like you have to go by the elevator, and I'm not sure on which floor, and there's like a hall and big window, and you're standing just in front of this inscription. Okay, so it's for free. So whenever you're in Trenčín, you can go and see it. So we can go there. There's also like translation on the plate in this corridor, and you can also like sit there on the couch and read about it. Basically, this inscription was about victory of the empire, and it mentions the specific legion and century that was fighting there. I'm not really sure about specific translation, but you can check it out. Another monument that is connected to our territory is so-called the Rain Miracle. This is depiction on the column of Marcus Aurelius in Rome. So there are these columns that are part of the Roman architecture, and more of the emperors had their own columns, and there were different depictions from their life and their achievements. So as we know, Marcus Aurelius was fighting in the Marcomannic Wars, and he also wrote about this event, the Rain Miracle. The legend says that there was really hard fighting near the river Rhone, and the Romans almost thought that they are going to lose the battle, but then they started to pray to the new god, and they were saved by this rain. So it's like the divine power would cause the victory of the Romans in this battle. But it is said that it happened near River Rhone. This is just like a fun fact. You do not need to learn it, but if you are interested maybe in this, you can search it up. And then I would be happy if you will tell me about the information that you found out, and we can discuss it. The next thing I want to mention is the decline and fall of the ancient Rome, because we're just finishing with this. So, the imperial crisis of the 3rd century AD was caused by the mix of the plague, invasion, civil war, and economic problems. So, for such hard times, the emperor Diocletian consolidated the empire with a dominate. So, after the 5 good emperors, there was a dominate again. So, this means that he ruled as a lord and a god, Dominus et Deus. But it was a little bit different, okay? He didn't do it because he was just a tyrant. He did it because the empire needed strong leader now. So he reformed coinage, what means a currency, okay, so money, bureaucracy, that means administration, and he appointed 3 co-rulers, what means tetrarchy, because with him it was 4 rulers on one throne. He did this because he wanted to diversify the power, so to divide it among more people. So it was not democracy, because these people were not elected, but he chose these people because he felt he can't do it on his own. So we call this tetrarchy, because tetra means 4. So 4 people, Diocletian and other 3 co-rulers. But he still could not make it, and in 305 AD he abdicated, so he resigned. He left the throne and moved into a new palace near Solona. Solona is in modern-day Croatia, and it's basically Split. Fun fact, in his new palace in Split, Game of Thrones was filmed. So it's the real palace of Diocletian. The next emperor was Constantine the Great, and he moved the capital to Constantinople. It's modern-day Istanbul. So it's in modern-day Turkey. Okay, so after the reign of Constantine the Great, Rome was not the capital of the ancient Roman Empire anymore. Then Theodosius divided the empire, and he did it because of the barbarian invasions that were coming from the east. The very important thing happened, but we will mention that in the second year. These tribes, these invasions, were slowly attacking the ancient Roman Empire, and they were weakening its borders. So that's why Theodosius divided this empire into Western Roman Empire and Eastern Roman Empire. You can imagine that Western was in the West, so we can say that England, France, Spain, Italy, in the western part of Northern Africa, and then the Eastern Roman Empire was more Dalmatia, Greece, Turkey, Egypt, okay, and this territory. This Eastern Roman Empire was later called Byzantine Empire. We will talk about it next year. But this division didn't quite help. the Roman Empire was still unable to resist the invasion of the Huns and the Germanic tribes. So these Germanic tribes created the barbarian states inside, so they penetrated and they were establishing the new tribes within the empire. Resulted that Germany, called Odoacer, removed the last Roman emperor of the Western Roman Empire, who was named Romulus Augustus, and so the Western Roman Empire fell, but only its western part. The Eastern Roman Empire will still exist. Okay, now I will show you the map. So here you can see the directions of these barbaric invasions. So the green one are the Huns, who were coming from like southern Russia, and they pushed another tribes. So you can see that they pushed the Vandals, so the blue ones. Okay. Also the Franks and the Angles, Jutes and Saxons were pushed by the other Germanic tribes. So it really caused a lot of movements and migration. Another thing that you can see in this map is the vision of the Roman Empire. So this pink is Western Empire and purple is Eastern Empire. Okay, so this Western had this capital Rome and Eastern Constantinople. Okay. And the last thing I want to talk about today is Christianity. Because as you know now, Rome is kind of symbol of Christianity. But you know that the Romans had polytheistic religion that was very similar to the ancient Greek religion. Now, the old gods were symbols of the state, and the Romans had to honor these gods, not only in private rituals, but also in public ceremonies. So it was compulsory. The gods were the same as Greek, so they were human-like forms. They were individual personalities, they were playing with the lives of ordinary people, but the different thing was that they had different names than the Greek gods. So there was Jupiter, father of the gods, so Jupiter was basically Zeus. Juno, his wife, was Hera. Minerva was goddess of wisdom, so Athena, and Mars was god of war, so this was Ares in Greek mythology. During the period of the empire, not only worshipping of the old gods, but also worshipping of the emperor was compulsory, and it was like the part of the official religion. You know, because this pontifex, so like the highest priest, established himself as a part of religion. So we can say that in empire, the religious part and political part, so both of these powers, were combined in the emperor. So he had power over both of these fields. The Christianity, so this new religion, started to spread in the 1st century. You know that Jesus Christ died in the year 33 AD, probably, and like his teaching also needed some time to spread. Okay, so it's why it took kind of like so long, but it started in the 1st century, like in the year 50, it was becoming bigger. You know, from the first point, it was considered to be a mystical cult only, and its followers were persecuted for the next 200 years because for people who were worshipping like their old gods, this was something like a sect, so just really a mystical cult, nothing more. And as you know now, it was compulsory to worship the gods and the emperor. But as you now know, Christianity became the largest religion in the empire and in the whole Europe. The Christians used the network of Jewish communities. They used to preach in synagogues and inherited Jewish sacred books and also produced new ones. The persecuted Christian leaders became martyrs, alebo teda mučeníci, and so very powerful symbols of new religion. You know, these martyrs were basically what was the strongest point that the Christians had, because these martyrs were willing to die for their religion, and this impressed the Romans, and they started to think about like there must be something about it. So martyrs were really powerful. We can say that it's in general. When you make a martyr out of somebody, it's very strong symbol. You know, think of some other people who died for important cause, like for example Jan Palach, who burned himself because he wanted to protest against the occupation of Czechoslovakia by the Soviet army, okay? Or for example, the murder of Jan Kuciak. So he died for writing the truth. Okay, so that's like really the strong symbol to become martyr, because people then can see that, these people died for some important cause and they are believing even more in their legacy. Okay, so that's exactly what happened in here. The persecution of Christians was stopped by Constantine the Great, whom I already mentioned. So this is the one who moved the capital to Constantinople, and he also issued the Edict of Milan. So this was a document. It was passed in 313 AD, and he freed the clergy from the taxation and gave them privileges in this document. And he basically made the Christianity equal to other religions. Okay, so all of them were equal. But then Theodosius, whom I mentioned that he divided the empire into the western and eastern parts, he made Christianity a state religion and outlawed the traditional Roman gods. So it kind of switched, People who worshiped the traditional Roman gods were persecuting the Christians, and then Christians were persecuting people worshiping traditional Roman gods. So that's like unimaginable, really. And so it seems to me like, kind of silly, because you can see that this persecution is really unnecessary, but this is also what the history teaches us. Here you have the Roman gods, but there are also names of the Greek gods. So there is like Zeus and then Jupiter. So the first one is Greek because the Greek gods were original for this, and the second name is Roman name. Okay, so this is also good thing how to remember that. Okay, so at least these most important like Zeus, Jupiter, Hera, Juno, Aphrodite, Venus, Athena, Minerva, Ares, Mars. Okay, so these who I mentioned. So that's it for the last unit of the first year. Everything you need is in the online lectures. Everything you need is in your presentation and notes. But if you still don't understand something, you can contact me and I can give you consultation so we can talk about anything you need to study into further details. Because I want you to improve your marks, I will give you also one small test on Friday, the 12th of June. And then 1 week after, we will have the big test from Egypt to ancient Rome. So you will have two last chances, one small test and one big test. So please study. There will be just the most important things. Okay, so for now, focus on ancient Rome, and after that, you can contact me with any question from Egypt to ancient Rome. So thank you for your great work, because we managed to make a lot together. So I wish you the best of luck for the test. So it will be next week. Don't forget, I will put it to the Google Classroom and to the calendar. So small text next week. Bye.